Welcome to the Center Mid Philosopher. This episode is brought to you by Augustus Royale Fashion. Life's not black and white, it's gray, and gray is beautiful. Check out the brand below in the link. All right, welcome to this week's episode of the Center Mid Philosopher. We got the Mashy Pea Mob here together. Matt Salen, we miss you, but we got Caleb Hatcher here joining us and Spencer Schulten. We're going to just dive into the world of the EPL here to start and talk about some cool stuff. So, fellas, right off the top, I'm just curious, we're kind of a month or so in now, just kind of taking a temperature check on, let's say, if teams were stocks, what two teams would you buy and what teams would you sell and why? And I guess maybe I'll lead us off if that's cool.
Yeah.
And again, probably some, as Spencer said, some low-hanging fruit that I'm stealing here. But I mean, Brighton. I would buy Brighton.
Yeah.
That
fruit's low.
That's real low. I'm taking the layups here. I'm going for the layup. But yeah, I mean, they crushed Man U. Ansu Fati is looking to be everything we thought he would be and potentially more. Roberto De Zerbi is just a tactical maestro that, who knows who's gonna be calling him this summer. That's the only sad thing is they may lose him pretty soon. Irish teenage sensation Evan Ferguson with his hat trick against Newcastle. So they're just crushing it. The other team I would buy, again, probably another layup, is West Ham. Sitting sixth even after losing Declan Rice. That was a major loss, but they've really backfilled him pretty well. They with Mexican international Edson Alvarez from Ajax showing to be the next big thing.
Yep.
Yeah, more pain. That's right. And again, the never been hotter number 6 position out there. James Ward-Prowse from Southampton, and then Lucas Paqueta from Lyon, the Brazilian, is sort of finally starting to get his bearing. West Ham's really ditched their style of playing more expansively, doubling down on defensively. Simply put, they're playing better defense and counterattacking really well. They're the EPL's leading team for tackles, plus interceptions and clearances. So anyway, I stole the good ones, but there's still some good ones out there.
There are, and
so Spencer, what do you got?
Yeah, I think also with West Ham, I think as long as you can keep Antonio healthy for the season, you got one of the best out-and-out strikers in the EPL, and I think that's great. They'll go as far as he can take him until his legs run out. But I'm not going to say Tottenham as a stock to buy, even though I may admit that I might have been so far a little bit wrong. I will stay on my original pick that Aston Villa will be good. I think that they need some more games to come into form. They started a little bit slow. They've had some losses. They looked kind of crappy in Europe last night, but I think they're going to come true. Unai Emery's a great player, a great manager. They've made some keen signings. They just need time to play into form.
Yeah, they or anybody else, what was the other team?
The other team, well, it was going to be West Ham.
Sorry.
No, it's all good. But
and it can be.
No. You've exhausted that one. I think then we will go. I will do this. I'll do everyone in Islington a bad thing here, and I'll say that Tottenham might be a stock if I'm a neutral. So I'm as an Arsenal fan. I can't do this, but I'll do it as a neutral. Tottenham looks good, and I think Ange Ball is previously tested at Celtic. He's been good. He's a great communicator now. The team seems to gel. The addition of Maddison is awesome. He has the opportunity to be like an instant legend there because he's just waving the wand all over the place. But their true test is going to be this weekend at the NLD, and we'll see if those wins they've had against some admittedly really crap teams thus far are really worth anything. Because we all know United hasn't been good, and that test is not that great. And the other teams they've played haven't been all that good. So.
Man, that North London derby is going to be epic. I can't remember two stronger Tottenham or Arsenal sides in a long time.
I'm going to be behind my fucking couch eating my fingers.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, those are great. Thanks, Mr. So, Caleb, what do you got? Who are your two buys?
Brighton, I mean, I do want to talk a little bit about Brighton. I think they're just maybe one of the best well-run teams like in the world
Yeah.
right now. Recruitment department's insane. Like they lose players every window, continually bring in decent players. Like even I saw Tariq Lamptey. He was probably the man of the match against Man U. It's like he hadn't played a minute in the season quite yet before that game. But I'm going to go a little off the board here with my first pick, which will be Brentford.
Ooh, nice.
Really like
Speaking
them.
of data analytics.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, they do have, I think they're 1 win, 3 draws so far.
Should have beaten
a loss.
Newcastle, though.
Yeah, and they should have beaten Tottenham, I think, week 1 as well. I think a lot of people thought they'd just fall off, when Tony and Raya gone. And maybe they'd even change their style, and they really haven't. They're still very direct, win the ball up front, and turn. And I think Brian Mbuemo, yeah. I think he's been super impressive this year. I think he's got 4 goals.
Wissa.
Yeah.
Badass.
Yeah, he's been a lot better than I think most people would expect. So yeah, Brentford. I think like 6th, 7th would be maybe a possible place for them.
I think though for you, it all depends on what they do with Flecken because he's looked awful.
That's fair.
And we know him from the Dutch side of the house. And he's really, really weird.
Yeah, that's totally fair.
So,
Love it. As one would be if they're Dutch, yeah.
Right. And I really don't want to do this because probably going to jinx him, but Liverpool, my squad, I'll probably go with my second one.
Yeah.
I think Slobozai and Alexis McAllister have been insanely good signings for them, even better than I thought they would be. I don't love that they seem like they play better when they go down behind, 1 goal
Yeah,
the
that's
first
right.
15 minutes,
Yeah.
which I did in Europe yesterday. But yeah, I'm really high on the signings they've made. Attacking-wise, I think they're great. I do think they could use another defender maybe in January. But yeah, so far I think they've done well fighting back, winning some games they probably shouldn't have. Newcastle, Bournemouth, they're down to 10 men as well. So yeah, those.
But last year, the reason they were so bad, I think, just my perspective, not being a fan, just like an independent observer, the midfield was old and didn't work, and so you've replenished,
100%.
and now that's awesome. And now you have that. You can push forward if Nunez can actually score. No offense, he's going to be great though. I think I still think he's going to.
Yeah.
I still do. Yeah.
Oh, Nunes, right?
Yeah.
I'll just throw in an honorable mention. I think Newcastle is better than their record shows. Like, I don't know. I mean, they're a tweener, but I think I've watched all their games, and I feel like they're really close to being able to turn.
Yeah.
I mean, like the first 60 minutes of every game, they're pretty exhilarating and very dangerous. I mean, I love Miggy Almiron. Tonali's doing okay. Gordon is a beast this year. I'm just saying.
He's a cheater.
Yeah.
That was not a penalty.
Yeah. They're on the watch list, I would say. All right, so we'll jump to Sell.
Yep.
I mean, I gotta say, Man U, unfortunately, they're just cursed, and not to mention everything on the field, but off the field stuff too, with Greenwood and Maguire and Sancho, and then Anthony. So I mean, they are just—it's not the curse of the Bambino; it's the curse of Fergie at this point. I mean, I don't know who they could bring in.
Yeah.
They're not looking good. I mean, I'm just at this point is like, how much longer does Eric Ten Hag get? I mean, I know he did really well last year, but I think if they lose 3 more in a row, he might be gone.
He's got 4 home games. I think you lose more than 1 or 2 of those, and you're on the ice.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. Second, it would be Chelsea. I mean, again, talk about low-hanging fruit. We're kicking a lot of people when they're down. Lowest of the low. But we've crushed them a lot. But, I keep thinking about with Chelsea, it's like the scene from Seinfeld when Kramer's feeding the horse beefarino, and he's like, well, I overbought.
Oh, Rusty.
And I mean, yeah, Rusty. It's like, well, I overbought. Well, that's what happened. They've just overbought. They've spent $1 billion in the last year, and
he's going to ruin Todd Bowley's carriage ride to the park.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to know, I want to know what they're doing there. Just as much as I want to go to have a coffee with the scouts at Brighton. in Brentford. I also want to go and have a cup of coffee with the folks at Chelsea and be like, what are you doing? I mean, so anyway, those are my two. What do you got?
Well, it seems like Todd Bowley's more obsessed with like making signings than signings that matter.
Right.
Let me just get everyone that anyone else wants, and I'll just take them and pay them.
Yeah.
But we can get into that later because there's a financial motivation to do what he does. Whether it will work, I don't know. But the amortization of these 8-year-long contracts are the reason that he's trying to get.
No, actually, right now, because we've been texting about how is Chelsea? Why are they doing this?
Yeah.
How are they doing this?
Okay.
And what are and the there's money laundering allegations, and I mean, so we got our anti-money laundering legal counsel.
Oh, not to put me on the spot.
Yeah, drop some knowledge on it.
No. Okay, so everyone knows the concept of financial fair play, FFP. You basically can't spend more than you bring in, subject to certain things. What Chelsea is doing is they're buying younger players and signing them up to contracts that are aggressively long, 8 years. During that 8-year period, you can amortize the cost of that player over that time, so that by the time that 8-year contract is over, the player is worth nothing. You sell them on. They also are really good at selling on their academy players. When you do that, it counts directly against FFP. Mm-hmm. What they're doing, though, is betting that these players that they've signed to 8-year contracts are not going to get grumpy like your Georgian friend on Napoli and be like, listen, I know I signed a long deal, but I ain't playing until I get a raise.
Kvicha.
Yeah, exactly. But that's basically what they're doing. They're betting on these long contracts. They're bringing everyone in and sort of sorting it out. Now, what they have on the side, though, that most people don't know about, maybe they do, whatever, is that the investment from Clear Lake, which is Todd Bowley's private equity firm, the Saudis have made a very large charitable contribution to that, to the point where players that Chelsea would have to ordinarily go to the open market to sell, meaning to another English club,
They just sell them right back to them.
They can sell them right back to the Saudi league at a price that's convenient for Chelsea. Let's put it that way. Yeah. And you're seeing that, unfortunately, at Newcastle as well with the PIF and the models are all over the place. But so I think the English FA has done a very poor job of highlighting how many bad bedfellows that there are out there, and just letting anyone in, to pass that character and fitness test that you have to pass. If the bar is low, we could do it like drunk. You know what I mean? And it's not good. But that's in a very short explanation. It goes much more than that. It's much more insidious and threatening the future of the game we love. But we can talk about that at another time. So while we're piling on to these teams, and it's my turn, I'm going to talk about Erik ten Hag and yet another bald Dutch man that is ruining someone else's life here, making mine great. But so what he's done here is basically brought in players, in my opinion, that he's mostly coached at Ajax. Right? These players have been expensive. Anthony's $100 million. There's been other ones, Onana. You can say that those maybe weren't the best signings. He doesn't seem to have a plan this year. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you look at the games that they've played, they look haphazard at defense. They've got McTominay playing on the right side of a diamond, which they never did last year. They don't seem to know what to do, and I just don't think he knows. I don't think he's ready for this. He's a good tactical coach, but the structure of that team from top to bottom, the Glazers, all the way through recruitment and funding, stadiums falling apart, their academy's gross, the facilities are gross. I know you've been to Old Trafford in the last couple of years. It is a dump. Mm-hmm. But I think Ten Hag is the guy I'm going to sell. Specific to Man U, I'm selling him. I don't think he's going to make it to Christmas.
Yeah,
and then he can go back to Ajax.
Yeah, that's right. And so interesting, I read an article about how Erik ten Hag is running the most disciplined program in the EPL right now, where everyone on the team has to run 10 miles the next day after a loss, and that can boost some morale, some tough. I mean, you kind of needed that, getting Ronaldo out of there and that kind of stuff. But when you're losing, you're going to lose people real fast.
100%.
Yeah, these guys don't run. They don't come to Man U for discipline.
No,
they come to have a nice paycheck and play for a top club.
Yeah. Right.
Well, that would be like, you see LeBron James running wind sprints on the side because he missed a layup or something. At some point, at some level, it doesn't quite make sense.
Yeah, you lose the locker room pretty quick if he hasn't already lost it.
It gets there.
Yeah. So who do you got for selling?
So Spencer almost touched on it when we were talking about Spurs. I think I'm selling Spurs as it goes with this season. You mentioned it, their schedule so far. Brentford draw, should have probably lost. Man U, not a great team so far. And then the other three teams haven't won a game. You got two promoted teams and then Bournemouth. So I don't think they'll finish top four. I think they're 1 year away from being, a top four contender. I really love the manager. He's great. They are playing a fun style of football. But I don't like the depth. Christian Romero in the back, never been a fan of. I think he's just an accident waiting to happen.
Yep.
So yeah, selling Spurs because if it was a stock, it'd be as high as, as it could be right now.
No, that's right. That's a really interesting take, and I guess we'll find out.
Yeah.
In about 48 hours, and because they're playing a never hotter Arsenal,
right.
And they're going into a buzzsaw on that one, and freshly minted, newly signed extension with Odegaard, who in my opinion might have been the best, top 3 to 5 best players in the world this week, and of course everyone else is just balling. I mean, they looked. I mean, I would have said, well, we'll talk about Champions League, but they were like one of the best teams that I would say they're in the top 3 or 4 best looking in the Champions League right now. But
did play PSV, and if we get into how Peter Bosz plays, you'll know.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It's an asterisk. Yeah. All right, so same but for players, you know, I'll start with Sel, Antony. I mean. And Mudryk, I mean, again, I'm kicking people while they're down. But Antony, not just like off the field stuff, but like, I just don't get that price tag. Like, he's kind of a butterface. Like, he looks really good from afar, and then you get in and you're like, he has no, in the final third, he does not play to feet. There's no, he just kind of lost it up there.
Yeah.
And hopes for the best. And it looks.
Big comic. He's also so ugly.
He looks good. It looks good, but then you're like, but you're not doing anything.
Right. Does a couple step over.
And then Mudryk, you know, I mean, again, poor guy, but like, not only can he not get it in the net, but he can't even put it on net. So that would be my sells, and then my buys would be, you know, Miggy Almiron. Again, I still think it's just a fantastic. I mean, I think if Newcastle's going higher, I mean, he's one of their best players. And then Evan Ferguson, again, low-hanging fruit, but he's kind of, everyone is saying, is he the new Kane? Maybe. But what do you got, Spencer?
I'm selling Onana because only Manchester United could trade a goalie with hands and no feet for a goalie with feet and no hands.
That's right.
He is terrible, and he's overrated.
That's
he's not going to fit in the system because what teams are doing, and if you watch the EPL last couple of weeks, ordinarily for him to be effective, he has to take the ball out and basically pass from the back, start the play from the back. Mm-hmm. Well, players are just sitting off and letting him just not play to his best strengths. Mm-hmm. So they can't really do much. And as you've seen, he can't really stop a shot. Mm-hmm. So
yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
What players would you buy?
I mean, I don't know if we've missed the spike on this guy's earnings, but Matoma for me. Like, I love watching that guy week in, week out. I would have him on Arsenal anytime. He's an awesome story coming out. He was writing a PhD like 3 years ago, and now he's bossing it. So that's my guy.
Nice.
Yeah,
good one.
That's a great one. Selling, I also had Onana.
Pile on.
It's almost comical each week. Like, Wolves game, he should have given up a PK there. He clattered into a guy. Even the last week in Champions League, he had a terrible goal he let in against Bayern. Just not very impressed with him. I had a couple more. Another one was Mason Mount, and I know he's injured now. The signing just never really made sense to me. It didn't seem like a player that Man U needed. I just haven't been impressed the 2 games he did play. And then I had another. Man U, Chelsea, Caicedo. I mean, he's a record signing now, and his first game probably went as bad as it could possibly go.
I felt bad for him.
Yeah, it was.
I don't feel bad.
Pretty rough. After the whole transfer saga with him in Liverpool and Chelsea, and then he also had, I think it was Forest. He gave another one away that lost him the game. So those are my 2 sells. Buying, I already spoke on him a little bit, but Szoboszlai for Liverpool, just tremendous. I've been super impressed. I always knew he was going to be technical, great on free kicks, but I wasn't sure about, or I guess I wasn't aware of how much he runs. Always getting back.
He recorded the fastest sprint during a game in Hungary during the national break. He tracked all the way back. It was the fastest they've seen a person run on a pitch.
That's
seriously
wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was super surprised. Like, I knew he was going to be a technical attacking player, but the way he works back, I've been super impressed. And then 2 others that might be a little off the radar. One just torched Liverpool last week, in the first half at least, against Wolves, was Pedro Neto. I think he's one that's going to be a name to watch soon, maybe even January if they're in the the relegation race there. He's going to get bought by somebody. He's extremely athletic, extremely creative. I think he's in something like the 99th percentile on successful take-ons, like extremely good attacking player there. And then Destiny Udogie from Tottenham, the left back.
Yeah.
He's another one. He's like a typical, prototypical left back, bombing up and down the side. And when he gets the ball, he's super creative. So, yeah, very dangerous.
Can I give some honorable mention to one?
Yeah, please.
I think a player to watch, at least until January, is Paulinho on Fulham.
That is a good one.
He was this close to being Bayern's
Yep.
new child, and he basically, they'd already done the presser in Munich, and then he found out he wasn't going, so he had to walk that back. But I think he's awesome to watch. If you don't have a team, Fulham's a fun one.
It is.
And Paulinho will be good until he's probably Man City's Paulinho or whatever.
Yeah.
We'll figure that out. And also, piling on to Man U, my second sell, big time Casemiro. I forgot to mention him.
Yeah.
That guy has fallen off a cliff.
Yeah.
His face seems to have gotten even bigger in the offseason, which is like, I don't even know how you could do that. He just looks well off it.
Man, yeah, he does. And he's such an amazing player just in his
prime.
Some of the announcers were saying that his legs have left him a little. He gave up a couple, not tracking back in the midfield. And that's again, I mean, it's been weird. Like, Man U's kind of become this like Real Madrid retirement team, sort of, with Varane and Casemiro.
We were Chelsea's retirement team for years, so
That's right.
So.
Zach, who do you got for players to buy or sell?
Yeah, so I'm cashing out my 401k. I'm, selling the house, whatever I got to do. Everything in Odegaard. I mean, I think he's a top 5 player in the world right now. Probably the best between the lines, like the line breaker. I might save a little bit of that investment for a little safety net for James Maddison, who I would like to point out in our last round table, I called him out as a player to watch.
You did.
So I don't need my flowers or anything, but just
putting
putting that out there.
Good.
I'm going to sell all the promoted teams, the recently promoted teams.
Oh yeah.
City guy, company, I wish Burnley was better. Luton Town, they play in an apartment complex, more or less. So I'm just selling all those, and then you guys covered it pretty well. Man U, can I sell every player on Man U? I'd probably like to do that. Chelsea, you guys have talked at length about them, but that's who I'm buying, who I'm selling. As far as players that I'm selling, I had Casiero down. Is it too early to tell? I don't know. But that's, you guys covered it mostly, but that's a couple. Harvey Barnes, I just want to say, I think he is more a player than what he's playing right now. Obviously, they got a good front 3 in front of them, but that's just a little honorable mention that I'll toss in there.
Nice. And then kind of wrapping up on the EPL, the Mashy Pea Mob here, kind of what storylines are you guys following going, as we kind of approach Christmas time? We'll start with you, Spencer. What are some things that you're really watching?
All right, low-hanging fruit time. Let's do Ramsdale and Raya.
Yeah.
Let's see what's going on there. So Raya statistically is probably the better goalkeeper. I'm not a goalkeeper for obvious reasons. I'm about 5'6". If you can't see on camera, there's no chance that's happening. Never played goalie. But what you can tell when you see Raya is that he's good at one thing that Ramsdale struggles with, which is catching crosses in the air. So he can catch the ball at its apex and pull it in, and Ramsdale tends to sit back. Now, we don't know what's going to happen now. Raya's now played 2 straight games. I was sure that Ramsdale was going to get the first Champions League. I would have bet my house on it. He didn't, which means that likely, tricky Mikel is probably just going to slide Raya into the number 1 slot for the rest of the season. That's my prediction, and it's kind of a bold one. But I think Ramsdale is going down to number 2, even though he was helpful since January. He's been a little shaky. You guys know this. There's been some times when he didn't cost us, obviously the title, but there were times when I don't think he was the type of commanding goalie that I think Arsenal needs to win the title, and Raya is that guy.
Spence, it's my bad to cut you off there.
No, you're good.
What's interesting about that to me is, Ramsdale is a character.
Yep.
Right? A 3-1, win, and he's over at his locker room, over his locker, just, throwing a temper tantrum. So I think, I guess in Arteta we trust, right? He's proven that he has.
Yep.
But it's almost like, is the juice worth the squeeze as far as dressing room goes, as causing a little bit of controversy?
Right.
It's just interesting that that's the situation that they're in right now.
I think that you can take it one of two ways. I take it as the goalie, the keeper is a position that is not unique to the position. I think everybody has the opportunity to be rotated, and everyone should be challenged at position. I think the idea of having a cup keeper and a league keeper is not as set in stone as it used to be. I think if you look at the nationality of the coaches on Arsenal, they're Spanish. Raya is Spanish. They've been tracking this guy for years, right? I think there was always a plan to bring this guy in, and I think Ramsdale rose a little faster to the number one spot than Arsenal anticipated, and here we are trying to push along and having competition at every spot. For him, Arteta, for me, challenge at right back, challenge midfield. Everyone's got to be pressed, right? And Ramsdale had no pressure on him last year, right? You're not going to start, unfortunately, our American friend. He's not going to do it. He's not good enough. Sorry, if you're watching.
How about you?
Storylines. So one storyline, I don't even know. Like, it's around the Champions League changing next year. I think is kind of somewhat underreported.
Yeah,
a little bit.
Good one.
And there is a chance that the Premier League gets 5 teams in.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that'll be very interesting. Like, we've already talked about Man U and Chelsea like falling off a bit. So who are those teams that, like Newcastle last year? Is it a Brighton? Is it a West Ham? Who sneaks in? That is not usually in the Champions League. I think is going to be super interesting. And to be honest, it's been one of the funnest years, at least at the beginning, where I do feel like it's a little more open.
Mm-hmm.
I still think City's probably going to win it, but
Yeah.
there are other teams that you're like, they could maybe make a run at that.
For those who don't know, can you just briefly touch upon the new structure a little bit?
Yeah, the new structure, if I can remember it all, I think it's 36 teams now. And it's kind of weird where I think it's basically, is it one giant table, I think?
It's a Swiss format.
Yeah. So each team will play, I think is it 10 games in the first round? And then it's basically I think it's something like the first 10 in the standings there move on. And then there's a little playoff round between the next 8, I believe. So yeah, that's kind of... Probably butchered some of that, but that's kind of the gist.
It's close enough. And at what point does these players' legs just fall off? It's just
I
too much
know.
fucking football around.
Yeah.
It's killer.
Yeah. What about you, Zach? What's something you're following?
You guys touched upon. I was actually going to bring up the Champions League structure, and then I was going to rely on my buddy Caleb to explain it. So thank you. But yeah, I just think at some point, and I think you're hearing a little bit of player safety. I think Messi talking about grass versus turf. I know that's a little bit more of an American thing, but just kind of the overall overarching player safety. How many games are too many? You hear Pep complain year in year out about we got to be ready to play a full game in 2 days, 3 days, whatever it might be. Just the scheduling, the structure of everything. It's no secret. Money rules the world. Money rules the world of football. So they're going to try to get as many games as they can in there. But just how much is too much, and when will that quality of play affect the product that we all love?
Well, you only need to look at what's happening in the women's game. You've had a huge uptick in ACL injuries last year.
Yeah.
And, I'm very close to the Arsenal women's team. I follow them a lot. And they've had 3 or 4 catastrophic knee injuries. And they just got knocked out of the Champions League already less than 2 weeks after the Women's World Cup. And having those qualifying games that close to a major tournament, it's detrimental to the brand first and foremost. But also, that's just, it shows you that physiologically it is too much on the legs. And we just don't need that happening to anyone.
Yeah.
Right.
But take a clue from the women's game that's suffering for that.
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of following how long will Eric Ten Hag stick around, and really can Arsenal? I don't know. I mean, I feel like the way they're playing, I feel like they might. It's kind of last season, but they might be able to knock them off. I mean, I'm really watching that closely.
They got to beat Man City once.
Yeah.
One of the two.
All right, guys. Well, this is kind of wrapping up the Mashy Pea Mob. Thanks so much, and stay tuned because we're going to jump right into the Champions League. All right, the Mashy Pea Mob continued here. We're going to take a deep dive into this week's Champions League action, the first of the year. Super exciting. I'm just going to start right out of the top. Let's name your top 5, your power rankings, your top 5 power rankings for Champions League so far. Zach, let's start with you.
All right, put me on the spot. Let's do it. I have City. I mean, someone proved that they can take them all first. I probably go Real Madrid. They just got a little something extra. And then I think for me anyway, and I'll just do 3.
Mm-hmm.
For me anyway, I think the drop off is pretty significant. Like I would be somewhat surprised if it wasn't one of those 2 teams. The third one I'm going to throw in there though. I mean, you'll like it. Arsenal. I really think that they have just a little something extra than say that second tier. I've already touched on Odegaard in last episode. So I think those are my 3, and then we'll see what happens from there.
I would have agreed with you in the Arsenal ranking had Timber not gotten hurt. Yeah. I think our lack of depth is going to be a problem, and I think what a squad that's still building like that, if they go after the Champions League, it's going to cost them domestically, and I think finding that balance is going to be a bridge too far this year given the injuries. But I think next year that conversation is one I'm in. I'll give you my other one. So I think unfortunately City is the team to beat, both in depth and experience and coaching. Unfortunately for those fans out there like you, and I have Madrid second, but third is not Arsenal for me. I actually think Bayern. I don't trust Tuchel, but I think that this team can get it together, and I think they might be a favorite there, much more so than I'd say Lucho's PSG. And any other the dark horses. I think Inter looks cool. They're a great choice, but I still don't know if they even win Serie A, much less the Champions League with their team and the turnovers.
Yeah, I was gonna say actually, my sort of sneaky is Inter a little bit, but then Arsenal and Bayern are right there, and then it's kind of Real Madrid, Barcelona, or maybe Barcelona, Real Madrid. Is Barcelona back? Of course, they just played Royal Antwerp that hadn't been in the Champions League since 1967.
Right.
But they still looked like everyone's freaking out, and everyone's saying, is João Felix is he back to where he should have been? And Gavi and Lamine Yamal is the new hot thing on the market, and it's been fun to watch him. And
Man City's Lamine Yamal.
Right, that's right, yeah. But so those would be mine. How about you, Caleb?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the similar names you guys are spitting out here. I think Man City is my clear favorite. I think they're so deep. Continuously buying great talent. Next, I probably also go Real Madrid. For all the reasons you said, Jude looks incredible there. He's been very clutch for them. And then I'm probably going like some combination of Bayern, Barca. I do have a dark horse that I really love watching play, is Red Bull Leipzig. I know they've made a semifinal before. They have a youngster, Xavi Simons. Incredible, super fun to watch. So it's probably my dark horse there. But yeah, a lot of the similar names you guys.
Can I ask a question? And it just slipped my mind. Who is Inter's keeper now that Onana's gone?
Oh, man.
I think it's Jan Sommer, isn't it?
It is Jan Sommer, yeah.
Right. So then Inter might do better than I thought. Because Jan Sommer, I think, is a better keeper than Onana.
Yeah, I just think.
Then who's in Bayern? Nobody then.
Well, I think Inter. I think one of the best players in the world right now is Lautaro Martinez.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not a lot. I mean, people are talking about him, but he just is kind of emerging as like just a stone cold killer. Yeah. And like they're crushing AC Milan. What was it, 5-1 or whatever? Yeah. That really was like a wake up for me. Like, because I actually like I thought they were kind of maybe the better team in last year's final. You know,
I think who ruined it for him. Lukaku's feet and butt.
That's right. If they can get there, they can out. But Bayern, of course, looks just phenomenal. So I guess we'll switch it a little bit and just kind of dovetailing off yours. Who are some dark horse teams to make it out of the group stage? Spencer, let's start with you this time.
Dark horse to make it out of the group stage. That would require me to know everyone in every group stage. Let me think about real quick who that is. I can tell you who I don't think is going to make it out of the group stage. I think Dortmund are cooked already. Mm-hmm. I think they're not going out. Mm-hmm. I think usually they're a locked and loaded round of 16 knockout team, no matter who's in there. But I think too many losses, a coach that doesn't have a system, And obviously, we're missing Bellingham and Holland, but even the players that have stayed are just not able to follow any sort of system. The defense looks cooked. I don't think they're going to make it out. That'd be my pick. I'm not sure if that's a dark horse pick to not make it out. If flip the script on you.
Yeah.
But come back to me. I'll think about that for a second.
What about you, Caleb?
Yeah, I kind of said it already. Red Bull Leipzig is my dark horse to kind of make a run. I don't know if they have enough to win it. They made the semifinals in like 18-19.
Yep.
I really like Danny Olmo. I think he's fantastic. They've scored some incredible goals in Bundesliga. I think it was against Augsburg the other day. What's the striker's name? Youngster, I think came from the other Red Bull, the Austrian team. I think it's
Sesko?
Benjamin Sesko. Yeah, he's super promising, super fun to watch.
Some people
as well.
are thinking he's the next big.
Yeah, exactly. So that's my team to watch. Love watching them play and hoping they get by and run for their money in the Bundesliga as well. But
Yeah, you know, who I can't really explain why, but I think it looks pretty good right now is Lazio. I think looks actually not too bad. I like Guendouzi, kind of his Arsenal outcast, the bad boy.
Guendouzi.
But he's in. You know, they still got Serie Immobile.
yeah, Luis Alberto.
Yeah, they look pretty good. What about you, Zach?
So it sounds funny to say, they're not a dark horse. I had Barcelona, and the only reason I had that is obviously it's not, not some new team that no one's ever heard of. I just think they've been kind of shitty, Barcelona, as far as like their standards recently. So that's like one that I had in here that, could reemerge. And I want to say this just because I don't think it's been said on the show yet. I am a Man City fan. I also started to like them when they had Craig Bellamy and Stephen Ireland and Rubinho.
Sure you did. Sure you did.
No. I want that to just, I was trying to find a way to just slip that into the show. So
Because you were afraid that I was going to call you like a fair weather fan.
I was.
I'm not going to do that.
It's funny. It's like, you're talking like, oh yeah, I really like soccer. Like, who's your team? And I just am like, man.
For the record, I did that in the car talking to Matt on the way over here. I was like, I need to hear the reason.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
So here's the reason. Growing up, I hated Manchester United. I was a UNC Tar Heel fan.
There you go.
So I'm like, I'm going to like the other team from Manchester that happens to be Baby Blue. So there you go.
Yeah.
So everyone can, shove it, everybody.
Well, it is. I mean, that's interesting. By the way, just interesting how these multi-generational fandoms can literally just start on something that flippant.
Can I add something to answer your actual question? Because I know I was giving you like a flippant answer before about Dortmund. I think Feyenoord could make it out of their group.
Yeah, they look great.
I think they can do it. I think they're in with Lazio and
Atletico.
Celtic and Atleti. So I don't think Lazio makes it out. I think Atleti and Feyenoord make it out.
Yeah.
I think Feyenoord scores for
Feyenoord looked great. Yeah. They look really good.
Anyway, that's my
So this is a good one. Who were some maybe off the beaten path players that really impressed you week one? I'll go just one that this is kind of a deep cut one. Maybe it isn't, but Vitinha for PSG.
Yeah.
I thought he was the best player of the day.
He looked awesome.
And, like that goal, for example, everyone was talking about Hakimi, and that was a really sick move. But, that was all Vitinha setting that up. And he just – I didn't really know who he was, but I was just watching that, and he just jumped out at me as he was – like almost old school Modric-esque level, and maybe like Verratti 2.0.
Without the cigarettes.
Right. That he was just crisp on the ball. He was quick. He clever, crafty, creative. He had a couple shots. He had that one off the post. Vitinha was probably my best player on the day. And then, of course, I thought Emery Zaire looked pretty good as well. And then I was going to say Benjamin Sesko for RB. Let's get. I don't know if I just took yours, but
I've got another sleeper if you want.
Yeah.
As an Ajax fan, I apologize to everyone in the Netherlands and Amsterdam. I've now given some praise to Feyenoord twice, but Santiago Jimenez is a Mexican national who's been lighting it up for Feyenoord this year. Yeah. He was rumored to leave. He's now stood in place. Now that Feyenoord's best player left, that guy Orkan Kosu, who left and went to I think Benfica to replace Enzo Fernandez. And so that guy has been scoring for fun. He's a crowd favorite. He's fun to watch. When Feyenoord has a home game at the Kuip, you should watch because they all have a good chant for him. It's fun to see.
Yeah. Zach, who do you got?
Truthfully, my Champions League digestion has been highlights on YouTube this week. It's been one of those weeks. So I'm just gonna throw a player out there that, I hope it gets a lot more run. And Spence, you might have an opinion on this. Fabio Vieira. Okay, so Kai Havertz. I'm sorry that they just look better in the team when it's Fabio. He unlocks a little something different. No one grill me. I don't know if he's playing Champions League yet, or I'm sure he got some cameos or whatever. But that's a player to me that if Havertz costed 40 million instead of his price tag, is that spot already taken? So I think that's one thing that...
The answer is no, because everyone in the Arsenal community was questioning why Vieira keeps getting minutes, because he was such a fairly expensive... I think it was 45 million euros, and he's a slight guy. He doesn't look very physically imposing, but he's got a technical ability that Edu and Arteta just said, just trust us. And when I did trust him and bought tickets to go see United play Arsenal up at Giant Stadium, he missed the penalty and they lost. So I was like, that's it, I'm done with this guy. But since the season started, he looks reinvigorated. I absolutely think his confidence is up. He looks amazing. I agree. That's a great call. I think he will get minutes. I think at the expense of people like Smith Rowe and Havertz. But I think that's a great call.
What about you, Kel?
Yeah, so kind of spoken on him a little bit already, but it's Xavi Simons for Red Bull Leipzig. Dutchman on loan from PSG. He's just incredibly creative. Kind of surprised. Well, I shouldn't say I'm surprised that PSG let him go, because they just have an embarrassment of riches. But just really, really enjoy watching him play, and every time he touches the ball, he looks dangerous.
Yeah, good one. I'll tell you another. This is I'm not sure he's a sleeper, but just best hairdo. I got to go with Kevin Behrens of the haircut that Gordon Gekko wishes he had. Right? The best slick back. But he also had a hat trick the other day in Bundesliga, and he's a good player. He's 32 years old. But I tell you, Union Berlin is like my favorite team to root for right now. I mean, their story is super cool, like coming from the east side of Berlin, and like they were
with Bonucci.
Yeah, with Bonucci to boot.
Weird.
So weird. Aronson is great. He got a cameo on there. They deserved a point. They deserved a point.
They did nothing wrong.
And
that Bonucci transfer is like when you sim 15 years of FIFA. And then you just look at all the rosters, and it's like, what?
There's some weird ones out there.
There are some strange ones out there.
Yeah, that was a really good. I feel like that was my favorite match of the day, or of the week. Union Berlin versus Real Madrid. I think they really. Yeah. Another one would be PSG versus Dortmund. Was a really good game. I thought
for PSG.
Yeah, for PSG.
Yeah, Dortmund awful.
So
can we pause for a second and talk about these penalties that have been given for handball in the Champions League so far?
Oh man,
what are your thoughts there?
It's a little egregious. Yeah. Like they're overdoing it.
I mean, I feel bad for Eriksen. I feel bad for Dortmund. Those are not handballs. I'm sorry.
No,
it shouldn't be like that. But that's my.
No, yeah, and they were talking about how Freddie Ljungberg was going bananas because he was like, "This is a tragedy," and I guess they've had some philosophical shift somewhere in the governing body saying. I guess they want more goals, but
there's a English FA version of handball, I believe, and there's a FIFA and UEFA version of handball, and they're not aligned.
Yeah,
I can't explain that to anyone right now, but that's just what I heard.
Yeah,
like, of course it's not aligned. Well, why would that? Why would it be?
So, and then we'll conclude with the Champions League on one thing, and it's kind of storylines that you're following. This one I'm just going to pose to the group. Actually, it's just interesting, and I don't really know the answer to this. What's the deal with Brendan Aronson for Celtics having like 9? He's got like 6 Japanese players and 3 South Korean players. I mean, that's great. But what is because he's kind of had a history of doing that. Does anyone know the story behind that?
I don't.
Nope.
But it's funny you say that because I was wondering the exact same thing because I saw their starting lineup and I was like, wow, they've a lot of Asian players.
No, I think it's great. I just am curious.
Awesome.
Like, I couldn't help but notice. I was like, there's 5 people in the midfield, and they're all Japanese, and that's just unique for.
If you have to guess, I mean, here's my hypothesis: the Asia and that part of the world is generally an undertapped market for football and
Yeah,
talent.
sure.
And Celtic isn't exactly the richest club in the world, so maybe they're saying we're going to develop in areas where we're going to stick a flag in there and develop from the youth in South Korea and Japan and maybe even China and get those players and have a resale model.
Yeah, that must be what they're doing.
It reminds me of, just let's go like 5 years back. I feel like young Americans were kind of getting, plucked and to different European teams, and even scaling that up, like, Liverpool's most recent signing, I'm going to butcher his name, Rodoro.
Retorindo.
Yeah. Right. He's, of that, that descent. So I just think that's the new, like you said, like the new untapped market.
Swapping a Hendo for an Endo.
That's it.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
That's terrible. I'm sorry. Edit that out of there.
Well, no, for like Celtic has from Japan, Tamaki, Reo Hatate, Kyogo, Maeda, and then from South Korea they have Yang, O, and Kwan. I mean, that's substantial. I mean, it's just it's probably that, but it's
Marketing too.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Big marketing.
But it's just super interesting.
Yeah.
It struck me.
Right.
Anything that struck you or anything you're following within the Champions League going forward?
Well, one thing I did want to note, Champions League, I really enjoyed. It was the Lazio Atletico Madrid game. There was a goalie goal in there, which was a blast. I also not.
Oh, that was incredible.
Yeah. It was goalie. I guess game tying goal.
Number 94 scoring the 94th,
I know.
which was really cool.
That's wild,
man.
So yeah, I wanted to touch on that, but in general, I'm very curious to see Newcastle and kind of how they handle this. Back in the Champions League, and do they prioritize Champions League over some of the Premier League games? I think they do have a squad that's gotten deeper through the summer, Tonali and a couple of their signings. So I'm just interested to see if they can get out of the group and see how serious they can
They're
take
trying to
that.
fly a little bit under the radar this year so they can slowly launder the money in the image so they can win the Champions League in 2025.
There you go.
Right. Anything for you, Spencer?
Storylines, I'm just really happy to see Arsenal back. I know it's a homer pick, but it's been a long time for me. And those teams, even when we were in the Champions League the last 4 or 5 years of us making it, and during that 20-year consecutive stint, were terrible. Those teams were awful to watch. They weren't what I'm used to looking at. I'm just happy to see them back. And hopefully they just have fun with it.
Yeah. How about you, Zach?
I don't know. Y'all covered it. I could throw out a couple ones that, you guys already said, but no, I think you're good. I think you covered it.
Well, I'd say another one that was a bummer of a one was I texted you guys, looked out there, and who did I not see starting was Christian Pulisic.
I know.
Man, I'm telling you, how many times have I talked about this on this show? Like that, you're gone. And like Chukwueze is, I mean, he's got good, but I mean, it's nothing like. But I knew as soon as they signed him, that was trouble. And I mean, he's playing. They played, but like it's just. We got 3 games in, and he's already lost the sparring spot. I mean, we'll see if he starts.
Well, he started hot too.
Yeah,
like
2 goals.
He had a great
fans
start.
were chanting his name in the San Siro.
I mean, it's just shocking how quick at those types of teams, that level that you're. You
have to be ruthless to win it.
Yeah, and so that's a bummer.
But tactically, I don't know what Chukwueze gives you over Pulisic.
Right. I don't.
He's like this big.
Yeah.
I
mean, no, I don't think he gives you anything different, really. So I just don't really get that. But all right, well, that's good, guys. Thank you. And this has been Mashy Pea Mob doing the Champions League, and we're going to segue into the Europa League. Thanks. Mashy Pea Mob, Center Mid Philosopher, segment 3 here, talking about the Europa League. We were all texting yesterday about how, if the Champions League is kind of like a U2 concert in London, the Europa League's kind of like the hipster, like maybe an Iggy Pop show in Berlin or something. It's just kind of, it was exhilarating, and it was really, I think they said there was the most lead changes in the history of the Europa League yesterday, which is awesome. And I don't know how many goals, but there was like a lot of games that were averaging 6 and 7 goals between, and so it was just, I thought it was epic, and I thought we'd be remiss if we did not touch on it briefly. So we'll just kind of start off with match of the day. What would you say yours was, Caleb?
So I was locked into my own squad, so Liverpool and Lask, I guess, Lask. Liverpool did what they've done all year, is go down early to a cracker of a shot from outside. Ryan Gravenberch got his first start, which I thought he was impressive, especially in the second half. Had a great assist to Luis Diaz. Liverpool, I was locked in there. Once again, had to come back, but I think they showed some bright spots on a team. Let's be honest, they should beat 10 times out of 10. But it'll be interesting to see how serious they take the Europa League without being in Champions League for the first time in a few years. And obviously they want to get back to top 4 and hopefully contend for the title. So, yeah, that was the game I was locked in on.
I was really paying close attention to Brighton in their first ever foray into Europe and how they would do. And they didn't. I mean, they did fine, but they lost.
Yeah.
And to AEK Athens, and I was completely shocked and excited to see Mateus Almeida leading the helm for AEK Athens, the former San Jose Earthquakes coach, who's just, I mean, guy's kind of done it again, won away. And there's just been a lot of talk of can Brighton handle Europe? Can Brighton handle Europe? I mean, if we're not going to make a judgment off one game necessarily, and they did fine, but it was interesting to me how we were just talking about them being my buy for the EPL, and then they go and lose to. I mean, I wonder.
Well, they played the moment, right? Not the game, I think, right? So,
I mean, I just wonder how many teams would AEK Athens beat in the EPL? Probably
Luton.
Not many. Right, Luton playing in their den, which is awesome.
They could take United.
Yeah, they could. But no, I mean, I just thought it was. I wonder what there is to that, and it maybe it goes back into your theme of just. I mean, there's just a lot of games being played.
I think they just played the moment. Yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Spencer?
You're gonna make me talk about this. Yeah. So I also just watched one game, which was Ajax Marseille. These are two teams that have fallen. They're historically great European giants, but they've fallen quite far the last couple years. Ajax these days, it's like your uncle coming to Thanksgiving. You don't know how drunk he's going to get and what he's going to say. You never know how they're going to show up. They showed up on fire yesterday. They looked really, really good. You got a great goal from Berghuis. You can go back and look at that. It was incredible. But then again, they have a very young defense. They had no midfield. They allowed 187-year-old Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang to score a brace, and then they ended up at a 3-3 tie for a neutral. That was probably the game of the week to watch in the Europa League. For me, it just leaves more questions with will Mo Stein keep his job? He's the coach of Ajax, and how badly they've managed the transition from that 2019 Champions League team that almost took down that almost took down Tottenham, that probably would have beaten Liverpool. And now they've sold all those players for $500 million, and the reinvestment, I'm sorry, I'm just not seeing it right now. Just seeing a bunch of like Dynamo Zagreb teens and some great young youth players, but they didn't play with any sort of maturity. There was no one old to lead them, and the result was a bunch of kids got beaten by washed Pierre Aubameyang. Basically is what happened. So, but it's worth a rewatch.
No, that was an epic game. What do you got, Zach?
I'll be honest, I wasn't really locked into Europa. How do you pronounce the midfielder, Caleb?
Gravenberch.
You mean great value Jude Bellingham? Anyway.
I'll take that, yeah. But I don't know.
Yeah, no, I wasn't super locked in. Spence, we were talking before, had an injury that you
the guy that swallowed a bee.
Yeah, so it's Serrano. He's an Atletico Madrid loanee. That's got to be the first time that I've seen that on an injury list.
Did he play, or did he not make it back to the hospital?
He did not play.
He did not play. Okay.
He did not play. So, youngster getting his shot, and you go and swallow a bee. I don't know.
I'm sure Simeone did not like that. You swallowed a bee, you got to play for him.
Yeah, you got to play. You got to run
go.
through the wall, run through the nest, right? Yeah. So, that's really the only thing I have. It's super exciting to watch, like when you can catch the highlights and everything. I think the Crazy League, like you described it perfectly. So
the Lazio show is like meant for the Europa League. It's like the best possible.
It's incredible.
Yeah, yeah.
The NFL Sunday Ticket Red Zone channel.
Pure unadulterated, just straight to the vein goals. And I feel like the fans are just even more insane. And like, I don't know, it's like all the guardrails are off.
Right.
I'll tell you another team that looked pretty good was Atalanta.
Yeah.
They looked really good. And it's interesting, too, though, that just like Sevilla, what is it? They've won is it 3 times in a row or at least twice? But they can't make that jump to. I mean, maybe they'll turn it around, but they did not do well in the Champions League, and I would have thought it's just weird. It's weird to me how certain competitions and fixtures just people can't quite get their head around it. You know what I mean? Where they're dominant in one arena and literally in the exact same stadium 3 days later, it's like a different setup. And so I just think that's one of the things that's the most noteworthy about it.
I wonder if that's style of play, or is that just an atmosphere change? You know, I don't think we can figure that out. But it was wondering, you know, you try to get in the players' psyches, psychology, the coaches, whatever. I'm just always curious. I wonder if it's just like the grand stage, or is the football just that much different?
Yeah, I mean, Spain in general has kind of dominated the Europa League recently. No, like Sevilla, I think Villarreal won it with Unai Emery. So yeah, it is very interesting. It's and lately the Spain hasn't done great in the Champions League. So
well, I think if you have to line up against a team in a knockout, it's much different than lining up against a team, you know, over the course of a season. He's playing home and away in a traditional domestic leagues. I think this is why Emery is so damn good, because he can just he can set up tactically for one game, but then he can't adjust that for the next game. Then they'll lose like 4-0 in their domestic games after winning, you know, 2-1.
Yeah,
I think that would be my guess as to why.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's both, Zach. Like it's especially playing away at some of these places, like. You know,
Eastern Europe.
And, Eastern Europe. I mean, they'll rip your ear off.
Like, Goretz,
right? Yeah, and then like some of these Serbian teams and Greek teams. I mean, it's like they're like sacrificing goats in the stands, and I mean, but it's just bedlam, frankly. And but that also is stylistically.
Right.
Like some of these Serbian and Greek and Ukrainian and whatever teams are really different, and maybe I don't know. I feel like some of these teams just are all out of F's to give and just give it. I mean, they're like they risk life and limb. And
well, speaking of that, I know this is not Europa League, but I'm still surprised that Milan in general let in all those Jordi fans for that game at the San Siro. That should have been a do not enter.
Yeah,
like I would love to see if there's any videotape out there of drunk Jordis in Milan, just ruining a beautiful city. I'm sure it's out there. So maybe we can find that for the next get around.
Well, good. Well, I appreciate you guys touching on the Europa League, and hopefully you guys learned something. But if you're looking, you know, for the casual fan out there, I guess I would say I would highly encourage you to check out the Europa League, because you might think, oh, well, this isn't as interesting. In some ways, I think it's more interesting. I mean, it's more entertaining. It's like, so just go check it out, and we'll continue to revisit it throughout the year. So thanks. All right, guys, this week we got the Cult of Catenaccio. We're going to talk about the Serie A in a little bit more depth here. And I'm just going to kind of go round tables with some questions. So to start, who's your favorite to win the Scudetto? We'll start with Spencer.
Sure. I think Inter will do it. But I really want this to be Milan's year.
Yeah.
I'll leave it there. I think Inter has shown that they're a better team. Milan still looks a little bit shaky this year, but I still want AC Milan to do it.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there in that 5-1, but they really lost it. And yeah, Lautaro Martinez is just ridiculous right now. I think I feel like in previous years he was good, but maybe a little bit more hype than. You know, but I feel like now he's stepping up and becoming one of the top. I mean, I think he might be one of the top 5 strikers in the world.
He's
maybe,
great,
if not higher than that. Yeah. Maybe
he's always been the guy. Like a big Rom got his like flowers, and that was kind of I always thought it was him and first, you know, as like the top person on the team, most prolific. But yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I also, you know, I think Milan, if they're gonna do it, they need Leauge to play smarter.
Yeah.
In the last couple of games, he's so streaky, and that's the problem, is that he's such a wonderful player to watch, but he'll do things like dribble through 3 people and then try a backheel like shot on goal, like when you just pass it with your normal foot. And it's just like if he does normal stuff and you can coach that into him, I think Milan has a chance. They need to play Puli, obviously, because that's important. But Inter does look like, at this point, the favorites.
Yeah. What about you, Caleb?
So first off, I think it's, on paper at least at this point, I think it's one of the most fun title races. I think you could have arguments for Juve, AC Milan, and Inter Milan, and maybe even Napoli. I think Napoli's kind of taken a step down. I am going to go out on a limb and say Milan. I love Pulisic and Giroud together. I think they've really played well together. Theo Hernandez on the wing. I'm going to go with Milan. I think they're my favorites at the moment. Hopefully they can get off the mat after getting punched in the mouth.
Yeah.
They looked so good against Newcastle too.
Yeah.
I think they fully rebounded from whatever anomaly happened at the San Siro against Inter. I think they should have won that game, or probably kicking themselves that they didn't. Because if you watch the first half, especially the first 20 minutes, they came out ready to go. And didn't get anything for it.
Tell you who looks really good for Milan is a lot of. I mean, obviously Leauge, but then I think Theo Hernandez looks really great. I don't love Loftus-Cheek. I mean, he's a specimen. I mean, he can be like a tight end in the NFL almost, but he's kind of sloppy with the ball a little bit. But obviously, my biggest thing I'm following this in Serie A right now is Pulisic, and he's been balling. I hope he starts getting the start a little bit more here lately. But what about you, Zach? Who's your favorite?
Yeah, not the sexy pick. I'm just going to go Inter. Almost like, they've shown me they can do it. Maybe Milan's a year away. Do Americans have a shorter leash than other players? I'm starting to kind of wonder that myself. I think at this point, it deserves the question. We touched upon it before we started recording, but, Pulisic jumped off to a hot start. Fans chanting his name. Goal in his first two games. And he looks the part. His third
game was fine.
And he looks the part. He's playing well. He's prolific. You just got to think what's going on behind the scenes that we don't see or we don't know about, or is it just a preference of nationality, or we're all Americans, so maybe we have some bias there. But I'm not sexy pick. I'm going Inter, and almost like someone else has to prove it to me that they can do it. So
and then Musa has done really well.
I thought he was good against Newcastle, yeah.
Well, he was fantastic. His tackles, his touches, he was really superb, actually. And again, kind of going back to Loftus-Cheek, those two guys walk in a room, you pick Loftus-Cheek every time, but Musa might actually be the better player. I don't know, maybe on defensively, but I think definitely in possession.
Yeah.
I tell you, a team that is sneaky, this is classic Juventus. No one's really talking about them, and they're not super flashy. There's not a lot there, but they're just kind of sneakily good. And it's also interesting too that McKennie is now starting for them, which is great. But I didn't know that he was going to be competing directly with Weah for the same role. I didn't really see that. We didn't foresee that. We talked about how's Weah going to do?
He was dead and buried.
Yeah, we were he'd be great if he plays. Well, I didn't know he was going to be competing with McKennie. It's also funny, maybe it's just the Italian way that I don't know how many times they publicly, it's like they had a press conference to just say McKennie is no longer plans with our future of the club. Multiple times, and here he is starting again.
Right.
Well, there's more spots open now that Pogba is going to be probably banned for at least 2 years.
Yeah, I know. What happened with Pogba?
Pogba gave an A and a B sample after a match that he didn't even play. His A sample tested positive for a banned testosterone variant, I guess. It is legal in the U.S. and prescribed to him by a U.S. doctor, but illegal in Europe. The test on
Ukrainian horses only.
It's pretty much that. And so they haven't tested the B sample yet. For some reason, that's been delayed because it's Italy. Let's be honest.
Sure.
There's probably some payoffs, some changing of the B samples or something. I don't know.
That's standard, obviously.
But yeah, so he's looking at under the rules a 2 to 4 year ban. Four if it's intentional, 2 if it's kind of unintentional. This looks unintentional, but as a player, I'm not one of those players, but you know what you're putting in your body. So I think that's kind of a weak argument. But I do feel bad for him. He's had a rough couple of years with the kidnapping and the extortion.
I know, and he was maybe my favorite player, debatably the best player in the world, maybe 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
What a story. I feel like we could sit here and talk about 2 hours just his career path. He's
had a wild 5 years.
It's made for cinema, right? You could see, Pogba, up on Netflix.
Someone to put a curse on
I know.
people.
I know. It's crazy.
It's not normal.
Wait. What?
So he hired. Someone's gonna have to Google this. He hired a witch doctor or a voodoo priest woman to put a curse on I think a rival in the team that he was competing for the same spot for. I think
Pogba?
Yeah.
I think that's what happened.
Man.
Someone's gonna have to look that up. We'll do our due diligence elsewhere. I didn't expect to talk about that.
Horse
but yeah.
tranquilizer.
Talk about
witch doctors.
team chemistry. There you go.
Yeah, but he was also the subject of like a blackmail, kidnapping,
I saw
blackmail,
that,
extortion.
yeah.
Poor guy. I mean,
Yeah. Only in Italian soccer or football are we talking about witch doctors. I mean, that's just standard. Bribing, witch doctors. It's got it all. So, like, last kind of thing on Serie A.
Yeah.
Any players that has really caught your eye that you're excited about? Any kind of any favorites for you so far?
I mean, we've talked a lot about Inter, but Marcus Thuram, the striker they bought, basically it's kind of a replacement for Lukaku. I think's looked really great, and maybe even better than Lukaku. Him and Lautaro Martinez linking up has been amazing, and I think he's a really dangerous player to watch out for. So it's probably top of my list.
Anyone for you?
I'm looking at two because it's part of a larger story that I'm watching unfold this year in Serie A. It's Kvaratskhelia and Osimhen, and I know everyone knows who they are. They're obviously like very talented attacking players. I want to see if they can hit the heights that they hit last year under Spalletti. I think so far under Rudy Garcia, Napoli don't look like they can do it again, and I wonder if it's just the system that Spalletti put in to make them that good. Whether they can kick on from that platform remains to be seen, but I'll be watching their sort of progression this year to see if De Laurentiis should have sold Osimhen this summer, which I think he should have.
Yeah. And so interesting, just for those that don't know about Napoli's coach, just sort of took a siesta year in the Tuscan.
But he went back to his farm.
Yeah. So he explain that a little.
I don't think not many people get along with the owner De Laurentiis. I don't think he's a very traditionally like brash Italian owner. He's a little bit cheap in that way and doesn't like to spend. And I think Spalletti is also a hard-headed guy, and I think he just walked away. And now he's become the head coach of the Italian men's national team, and I believe that there's now some sort of threatened lawsuit over the payment of his contract that he walked away from at Napoli, that now De Laurentiis is going after the Italian FA for that money that's allegedly owned because the contract is still valid even though he walked away. I don't know. It's a disaster. It's very Italian. It's very fun to watch.
Yeah, very cool. Well, cool. Well, great, guys. Zach, do you have anyone in the Serie A, any players that really caught your eye?
I mean, not really. I'd be lying to you if I said I was locked in week out. But just does the Luka Jovic play for Milan? Does he play at all?
I don't think so.
He's on the squad still, right? As far as I know.
No.
Like I think in that league, it's funny.
So if you don't know where a player is playing, it's definitely going to be Turkey somewhere. If we can't answer it, Turkey.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a good
Rule of thumb.
I just think, and I don't know if this is like league specific, and I don't know if it's just because money has been pumped in everywhere. I just feel like 10 years ago, all these random transfers just didn't happen. At least when I first started like really following it. But no, not really. I mean, Pavard at Inter, I guess, would be one. But no, I think you guys pretty much covered that pretty well.
All right, cool. Very cool. All right, guys. Well, this has been the Cult of Catenaccio with Center Mid Philosopher. We're going to now jump to La Liga Lunatics and talk about the Spanish game. All right, cool. All right, so just jumping right in. What team do you guys think could contend with Real Madrid or Barcelona? Caleb, we'll start with you.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Realistically, I'm going to say no one. But a team that I usually like to follow is Atletico Bilbao. They've, occasionally give them a run for their money.
Yeah.
They've started out pretty well. I think they're 3-1. Inaki Williams, I was surprised to see he's still there.
Yeah, how is that happening? Like,
I don't know. It felt like it was every summer. A few years back, he was always rumored to go away. He's still there. So yeah, that's probably my kind of dark horse to maybe give them a run for their money. But in the end, I still think it's Real.
Like mine's not a dark horse, but like I think Atleti could do some damage this year. They're either going to finish first or like third or fourth, but it's not going to be a second. Like they'll either win it and they'll do it right. But other than those teams, like the big three, I would like to see Sociedad do well just because they're fun to watch. for those of you who follow Arsenal, Kieran Tierney's there on loan.
That's one of those weird transfers.
Yeah, like, how did this Scottish guy end
It
up?
looks weird.
But San Sebastian's beautiful, good food. It's like the Scotland of Spain. The weather's kind of cold a little bit, except the food's good. Not Scottish.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I think they could do it. I think they could push, but I don't think they'll get there. I think this is another Madrid year for me.
Yeah, maybe Sevilla for me. I don't know. A bit of a long shot, but maybe I don't know. They got Ramos back, and they just did so well. But again, I don't think. I'm just saying. No.
Yeah. Having Ramos back good for Sevilla? I mean, I don't know about that. That seems a little. They hate him.
A lot of tattoos, at least. That's something good.
Fair enough. But, he's a good-looking guy.
Yeah, he's a good-looking guy. So Jude Bellingham right now, just on fire. I'm just curious, where would you guys put him in the world right now? Where would you rank him? And do you think he could contend for a Ballon d'Or in the next 24 months?
I think he's contending for it now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's right now. I think he's probably, right now, the best player in the world.
Yeah, okay.
Right now. Like, not for his career. At this point, given what we've seen this season, he's doing it all for Madrid, and he's doing it at a very young age. And he's like a handsome, powerful leader. Locker room loves him. He's 19, and like everyone looks up to him. And he's the one, which is so interesting. When the team's looking like they need senior leadership, he's pulling some of these players forward. Like, move your ass. Like, if you see how he is with England, he's yelling at the Hendos like, move. You got to track back now. It's not like the 1920s. You got to cover. So he's really emerging as a leader. But then his gameplay speaks for itself. I think he's contending right now.
Yeah, that's kind of why I asked that question, because that's sort of what I feel. Right at this very moment, I don't think anyone's. And talk about the best transfer of the year. Just because, given what they paid for him.
What they pay, 100?
Yeah, was basically like, Chelsea throws those out
Modric.
10 at a time. Casado and Modric and Fernandez and a bunch of these guys, and then the best player in the world right now playing for the best. I marvel at Real Madrid's ability to, they're the anti-Chelsea. You know what I'm saying? They're not, they don't, we've talked about this before too, they get players here and there, but they kind of do one or two really, really, really targeted.
Right. Well, they have the mystique behind them too.
Exactly. Everyone wants to
go there. They're going to get Mbappe next year. That team is going to be so rough.
Well, right. Yeah, no, they are the, let's go even get weirder with it. Where would you put Real Madrid as a brand globally? I think they are it.
It's them and Barca.
They're number one in the world.
In terms of football brands? I would say they're one and maybe Barca, United, and Madrid. Yeah, probably global recognition of the biggest brands. Yeah,
I think we're forgetting one team, but that's fine.
No, nobody likes money laundering.
Yeah. Or sovereign state.
Yeah,
but no, I think he's there too. What do you think, Caleb?
I'm right there with you. Yeah, I think he's there. When you think of the best players in the world right now, it's him, Mbappe, Haaland, and I think he's definitely fighting for the number one spot. I did not expect him to go into Real and just succeed right away. And like you said, he is a leader in that locker room, and he's had so many late winning goals for them in La Liga. I'm super impressed.
And if you'll remember, I know you probably don't follow Dortmund to the same sadness that I do, but we lost the Bundesliga title on the last day of the season last year. Don't even losing to Mainz, and we shouldn't have lost. But Bellingham didn't play because of a minor knee injury that he's sort of been developing over the back half of the season. He didn't play. The team had no leadership. That's a team with Marco Reus, Julian Brandt, senior players, Emre Can. These players should be able to step up. They didn't, and they fell apart.
Yep.
And he was the mentality at 18 for a team of a lot of veterans. So I would. He's worth 200 to me if if Arsenal could get him.
Well, let me add on to your question a little bit. Could he? We can't project out, but career path. Who has done more at 19 years old? I'm sure we can figure out some names, but just projecting, it's not out of the question to say, he could end up as the best midfielder of all time, as long as that trajectory, keeps going up. Who he reminds me of? Not totally the same, but he's kind of Zidane-esque.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. He could, he probably likes to play a little bit more forward, but he can play the 10, can play the 8, could play the 6, and he just got that something, you're leading grown men that play for Real Madrid at 19. That's different.
Yeah.
It's just different.
He is in the seat. Like,
Yeah.
There's nowhere else to go. I mean, that he is there. And the episode that we did before this, talking about what's in a number, and we talked in depth about the how the 6 has become such a hot thing in the world right now, and in my opinion, maybe a little overvalued. But and then the 10s and the 8s and the 9s and everything, and how you never hear anyone talk about the number 5. But to me, historically, number 5 was a brand and was a real do-it-all center mid. I think of, we talked about Zidane, I talked Fernando Redondo, and I feel like Bellingham is sort of bringing the 5 back a little bit.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
And he kind of is that, like, I mean, and to your point too, he does have that brand that he's young, he's really polished and professional, and like seems like a really good guy.
Yeah.
So he's one I'm rooting for.
I mean, if you're a fan of England, imagine Rice and Bellingham in your midfield.
Yeah.
Two basically captain materials for the next 10 years.
Yeah,
If
it's
not
awesome.
longer than that. That's really
it's
cool.
Really awesome.
The Netherlands have nothing like that.
Yeah, that's right. So another question is, Barcelona's kind of looking like a new generation is here a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Who's your favorite Barcelona player right now, Caleb?
Probably Frankie De Jong. I think he's kind of revitalized himself a little bit. It was kind of weird, he was going to be forced out. It looked like he was going to go somewhere to the EPL. I think he was rumored Man U, Liverpool, a lot of places. And I think it's great that he's stuck with it. And I mean, they look like a promising team, a lot of talent, as they always do. But yeah, Frankie De Jong's probably my guy I'm watching most on that squad.
Nice. How about you, Spencer?
Well, I'm going to give a more straightforward answer than that. I love Frankie De Jong. I think I'm enjoying his revitalization under Xavi. I think he's doing great. But like, if you watch Barcelona closely, and you happen to be fans of goaltenders, Marc-Andre Ter Stegen, I know he's everyone knows who he is, but he has single-handedly kept them like alive the last 2 years when they've been figuring out all their financial levers, taking pay cuts. He's been behind the scenes, the kind of guy that's kind of glued it together. But I could name Gavi and Pedri and all these people. I'm not going to do it. I'll let you do that. 'Cause you have to.
Well, I'm actually going to name Lamine Yamal.
Oh, there you
go. And I know that's, again, kind of a sexy pick, but like 16-year-old starting for, I mean, it's just crazy now that my son is almost 11. You're like a kid 5 years older is starting for, and many, not every game, but a lot of games, people have said he's the best player on the field.
Now he's Moroccan or Algerian?
He's probably Algerian, but he's Spanish, I believe.
Well, that's why he got his call up so quickly.
Right.
He get that 3 cap limit in there before he can go back to the other team. Yeah.
But he's a really, I mean, whenever he's on, I try to watch it's just been fun to watch him. What about you, Zach?
Probably go Gavi. Young midfielder. There's just something about like a young guy in the midfield that's just going to say F you. I'm going to run through you. I don't care if you're 32. Like he plays like a little bit of moxie, like a little bit of like a chip on his shoulder. As a young, central midfielder out in Sunday League, I like to think I do the same thing.
Well, speaking of Sunday League,
yeah, please.
There's a guy in Barcelona, and I'm going to get his name wrong. You got to correct me. Oriol Romeo.
Yeah.
You seen this guy? He's bald. He looks like a guy who came right out of a bar into Sunday League.
Yeah.
And I want to see if you can hold up for the whole season.
Yeah. No, it's
Forgot they
interesting.
signed
Yeah,
him.
they got a ton of
Played for
guys.
Chelsea way back when.
Yeah, they got just ton of guys that you kind of forget about. You could also say, oh man, help me out. Played at Chelsea. Was at Felix.
João Felix.
Yeah.
He's definitely hitting his stride. So I'd probably throw them 2 in there. But yeah, gun in my head, I'd probably pick Gavi.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, I mean, just having Lewandowski certainly doesn't hurt, and then João Felix playing great, Gavi, Lamine Yamal, Frankie. I mean, they're legit. So I mean, yeah, again, who's better, Real Madrid, Barcelona? I guess we'll find out, but it's going to be tight.
Whose books are more cooked?
That's right. That's right.
Cities.
I'm going with Barcelona's fried. I mean, we could crowdfund one of our logos for this podcast onto their jersey. I bet they're that broke.
They're very broke. They're very, very broke. Interestingly enough, too, I've read that Xavi's had like 9 different right backs in the last year, of which poor Serginho just got drugged through the mud on that. and Aruja from. But anyway, that he's got a obsession with that position.
Well, Dest looked horrible for PSV.
Yeah.
Like horrible, just got cooked. Anyway.
Yeah, they were dogging on Dest because he put on Instagram, he put a highlight reel on, and someone was like, dude, you lost 4-0. Like, dial it down a little bit.
Yeah, I still blame him, though, because back when Ajax had that fire, 18-19 third shirt that was blue, looked like snow. Remember that? Mm-hmm. I bought that with Dest on the back, and then he left. So I got the shirt I can't wear. Nice. It's awful.
Yeah. Nice. It's a doormat.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, cool. All right, guys, this has been La Liga Lunatics, and I appreciate it, and we're going to jump into the Bundesliga Berserkers here in a minute.